I think it's like this tag team. We kind of take on these roles, and when he needs to be strong, he's strong. And when I need to be strong, I'm strong. One thing's for sure, we have an unconditional love for Molly, and we will both go to whatever length we need to ensure that she is getting everything she needs. Yeah. I will advocate for her forever.
You will hear this quote at the beginning of this episode, but it is the perfect summary of what you are about to hear. Our guests today are Kevin and Jess Kramer, the parents to Molly. This is the second part to this excellent two-part conversation. My name is Seth Carnell, and this is the Go Shout Love podcast. In case you are just now listening to us and to this podcast, Molly is a joyful, music-loving girl in Celina, Ohio, who has Dandy Walker syndrome, infantile spasms, cortical visual impairment, and silent aspiration. You can find out more about her diagnosis and medical journey from last week's episode. This week we are going to focus on relationship. It can be difficult to paint a picture of what a marriage or a relationship can be like when it surrounds the care of your child with a diagnosis. This is why we are very grateful to Kevin and Jess and their openness to tell us what their life, their marriage is like, especially when caring for Molly. This kind of mutual appreciation and love extends beyond the people that live in the house, and it reaches into the family and then the community. These are always some of my favorite stories, hearing about how these parents and their kiddos are loved by people. The families, the friends, the medical staff. Hearing these acts of love helps drown out some of the noise that the world can often create. The medical staff side of things is a major contributor to how people become equipped to handle the diagnosis. We have heard both really encouraging stories of doctors and nurses and sadly discouraging stories as well. Kevin and Jess give some very lovely stories about how some hospitals take care of their patients and take that to another level. Josh Veach is back leading this conversation. He is one of the co-directors of Go Shout Love. Please share the Go Shout Love podcast with someone you know, especially someone who may have or know someone that has a child with a diagnosis or they are on a rare medical journey. A resource like this conversation can really go a long way. And now to get us started, here is Josh.
One of the things that's kind of been clear in that our team's picked up on with you guys early in the conversations is that you seem to have a solid bond together, and that you kind of make a great team together. Describe how becoming parents and especially navigating a child that's facing a diagnosis like this, how has that impacted your marriage?
Oh, I can say this. I wouldn't be able to do it alone. I don't think either one of us would be able
absolutely.
to. I always like to look back on hospital stays, and there'd be times where Kevin would be losing it and he'd be like, I can't do this. He'd have his breakdown and I'd be the strong one. And then there'd be the time where the lady would come in with the Molly's feeding pump and say, all right, are you guys ready for training? And I'd lose it to the point where she's like, I think I'll just come back later. And so I think it's like this tag team. We kind of take on these roles, and when he needs to be strong, he's strong. And when I need to be strong, I'm strong. One thing's for sure, we have an unconditional love for Molly, and we will both go to whatever length we need to ensure that she is getting everything she needs. Yeah. I will advocate for her forever.
I like to think we make a pretty good tag team between the two of us. There's things that you're way better at than I am, and there's things that that I'm better at too. So we both kind of complement each other's skill sets.
Yeah, and I think that avoids burnout too.
Sure.
We not only just the two of us, but we have an incredible support system in our family and our friends, and especially our community. Yeah. So we get through this with the help of them, with the help of each other, and most importantly them. So
yeah, one of the cool things that you guys have mentioned is that you have kind of an agreement that when you get bad news or if something's going wrong, if there's a hospital stay, you kind of set an opportunity for you to be real with what you're feeling and to take that stuff head on, and then you move on. Yep. So you've set even a time. It's one day.
It's one day.
So tell us about that.
Well, it's happened to us multiple times.
Yeah, and I said, I told Jess, we got bad news today. Today we're gonna, I guess, grieve a little bit, be a little emotional. Tomorrow when we wake up, it's about Molly, because one thing about Molly is that she's always happy. You know, she doesn't let the fact that she has some disabilities keep her from smiling and or keep that from impacting her outlook on life. So why should we? You know, we're going to take one day to be upset, one day to be sad, one day to say, why us? And then after that, no more.
It's not
You're
about
moving
us.
on, and you have to be strong for, you know, our daughter. And we're going to then after that go and talk about how we're going to overcome defeat. Now, that's not to say that there's never been tears. You know, obviously there's relapse and there's tougher days.
And when rounds come, you swallow hard and say, all right, let's do this. You know, we're moving on.
But that's the goal.
That's the goal. One day rule. Kramer one day rule.
And where'd you come up with that idea?
You know what? I think
necessity.
Out of need. It just, you can't dwell on it. You can't. And you know, we've been through this so many times that you just gotta move forward. You know, you can't dwell on it. Molly's not dwelling on it. She's smiling. She's been poked and prodded so many times and she's still laughing at you. I mean, she's looking to you. She feels that energy. So
she is too happy of a little girl for us to say, you know, we're gonna let this, you know, impact our lives in a negative way. We're never not going to take her someplace that you wouldn't take any other 2-year-old because of her, you know, limitations.
I am very adamant about that. Very much so. A huge advocate, and Kevin will tell you that we will do and take on anything any other 2-year-old. I mean, it'll take more planning and preparation, and you may have to make some phone calls, and we don't do it out of spite or, you know, hey, we need attention or, you know, it's just because we want her to be able to live like any other 2-year-old.
Yeah. So there were times where we'd be carrying a feeding pump, feeding bags, cartons of food, oxygen tanks,
backup supplies,
whatever. So it just takes
and there we are sitting in the bleachers ready to rock the game.
It just takes an extra trip back and forth to the vehicle to get stuff. Like, we're not going to let that, you know, stop her from experiencing things that she wants to experience.
And it would be easier. It would be easier to stay home and not do those things and not go out to eat and just order takeout when you want to go out on a Friday night or watch the game online or, you know, tune in on the radio. But you don't, other families go, so why not? You know, let's go expose her to that.
Well, I think, and we're gonna touch on the advocacy piece in just a minute, but one of the things that's cool about your approach in that is that not only does that do something for Molly, but that does something for the two of you in helping you change surroundings and environment and give you an opportunity to engage with other adults. But it also does something to every person that gets to meet Molly in that context. Because it normalizes to some degree some of these challenges. And instead of, you were talking before about kids and kind of the moving people, trying to help parents move away from the don't stare into the engage conversation.
Absolutely. Come forward, stare if you want.
Going to the stands and being involved in those sort of things is another opportunity that you're helping shape not only her future and her life and yours together, but also the entire community. And I think that's really powerful. Speaking of community, that's a common theme that we hear from families is how important, and you guys have touched on this too, having a support system and a community to kind of navigate this journey with you. Are there people and or organizations that have supported your family and helped you in this journey? And if so, what ways?
Oh, yeah.
So
countless
I would say,
supporters. Our community, we could not say enough great things about our community. Family.
Starting with family. First, my aunt, Gretchen, she,
Go ahead. Oh, okay. Sorry. Gretchen had her, what would you say? Her workplace closed down. And so she did not have a job at the time. And so after Molly got her NG tube and we couldn't take her to, I don't want to say we couldn't, we chose not to take her to her babysitter at the time, just because, not that the babysitter was phenomenal, just because there are other kids and the risk of getting her tube pulled out and things like that. So Gretchen volunteered willingly to watch Molly, not just 1 or 2 days a week, every day.
Every day.
And because of the pump and the supplies and the oxygen and all this, everything that comes with Molly and life with Molly, she drove to our house, which was a 20-minute drive. Every morning she was here by 7:30 and she stayed till 4. And sometimes on therapy days, she would willingly stay for therapy too, so that she would know what to do and how to work Molly, or, give her what she needed during the day. So she did that for the rest of the year.
Yeah,
and
the rest of that school year.
Yeah, every day.
She would be there taking notes. And the first day that she watched Molly,
we can laugh about this now. And she knows too, so.
She's very particular. Okay. And we came home the first day and there was a pile of burp cloths like this tall. And she goes, those are all the ones that touch the ground. And so,
like if they would just fall off,
and I feel like we said,
notes
thanks.
everywhere. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And then she left and we probably folded them back up and put them, in the clean pile. But, just the fact that she stopped her life, she was retired.
Yeah.
And just stopped what she was doing. And this didn't come natural to her. She never had any kids. And so this was all new to her.
She didn't have any background in the medical field.
No medical field.
Nothing.
Children.
Nothing.
And so because it's a sacrifice, or it's a challenge to care for a child during the day.
Yeah.
Period. But when you have these other things that are very, compromised immune systems or
oxygen, feeding tube,
all those things,
you had to be able to troubleshoot a feeding pump if something went wrong. It was just
what an incredible blessing.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. We call her Saint Gretchen.
Yeah.
She hates it when we say it, but we call it that.
Yeah. It's gonna it's stuck.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah.
Just because, there's no doubt about it. At that time, if she didn't step up,
one of us
would have had
jobs.
to leave our jobs. Yeah. And so just eternally, forever grateful
for her.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And then
after that, we got through that first school year.
Summer hit.
Yep. And then we,
my mom retired after 36 years of teaching kindergarten. And she became saint number 2. Yeah. She watches Molly now 3 days a week, and Gretchen still cares for her 2 days a week. Mom had asked at one point, and Gretchen said, "Oh, I can't give her up completely. I've spent too much time with
you're
her.
You're going to have to phase me out of
you're
this
gonna have to.
career.
So they share, and it's so nice. They each get their break. Nobody gets burnt out because it's a lot.
Sure.
And we're eternally grateful because we can still go to work every day. And we come home and we know we have no reservations when she's in the care of them. I mean, there's no fear. You go to work, you can leave, everything behind, go to work, give it your 100%, come home and give your 100% to her. Yeah. So that's huge.
And not only just those two family members, but siblings, other aunts and uncles, my parents also.
Oh yeah.
The amount of times that,
they've dropped everything and drove to Dayton because we didn't have company coming that day. Right. They ensured somebody was there every single day of our hospital stays.
Wow. And I guess to highlight that, when we were in the hospital, you walk by a lot of rooms and there's just not a lot of activity.
Yeah.
And that's not those parents' faults, but the fact that our family was so supportive. There was times where we needed shoulders to cry on. Or take laundry home and bring it back for us. Bring
me some caffeine because this hospital is caffeine free.
That's a thing? Is that really?
Yeah, there's no pop at that hospital. And so they would bring Coca-Cola for me.
There was pop, just no.
No, it
caffeine,
was,
right?
it was diet, only diet. Yeah, or something.
Yeah. So no Mountain Dew and no Coca-Cola.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Cutting back on the sugar.
Yeah.
They're trying to make
me
force
healthy.
These healthy life choices in the middle of difficult seasons.
You would think with how long I've been there, I would have just given it up.
Yeah. But
when there's a will, there's a way.
Just their willingness to stop what they were doing to help drive to Dayton. It's not a short drive.
It's not a short drive from here. They would bring us meals. They'd say, what kind of food do you guys feeling? And we'd say, oh, nothing. We don't need food. And they'd surprise us with food. We spent anniversaries in the hospital. I mean, everything. So they're truly incredible. And it just makes the days go by faster when you're impatient. So.
And it's another reminder that you're not alone.
Yes. Correct. Oh, most definitely. Yeah. Most definitely. So her cousins would come down, and I'll never forget, they don't think twice of anything medical. If I could just, I have that memory so clear. The kids coming in, they just hop right up on that hospital bed. Oh, here, let me get your tube for you, Molly. Or, hey, Jess, I think her oxygen might be kinked. Is this okay? They don't think anything of it. Yeah. Let me help feed her. Can I push meds? I mean, they have the language down. Hey, where's her bolus? Which one do you want me to use?
Man.
It's just
so cool.
You can tell how loved she is.
They are the nieces, our nieces and nephews, Molly's cousins. They don't look at Molly as any different.
That's their cousin.
Yeah. Matter of fact, sometimes they kind of fight over who gets to help Molly with meds, or help feed.
And they're so in tune to her, they know, hey, got to go wash our hands, or hey, did you wash, or don't do this, or it's just they're so in tune to it. They're so used to it. That's
so amazing. And I will say we've had enough of these conversations with a broad range of families that's not always the case.
Exactly.
I mean, they will have a lot of people that are supportive, but there are times where that has created tension in extended families where, and it's not intended, but it's just a natural of they don't understand what we're going through, and so it's because they're not living it. But it sounds like your siblings and your nieces and nephews, and obviously your parents and aunt have just dived in, and they're living it with you.
Yeah.
I think that's really,
and they're
really
always
awesome.
there, because it's not, one thing is you can't just call up any babysitter.
Right.
Hey, can, so-and-so come over and babysit? You got to map out tube feeds. You got to map out meds, who's pushing the meds, the food, and so they're always great to help out.
Without a doubt, we could not.
We could not.
I mean, I'm sure we would have rose up, but
one day, Kev, one day.
You figure it out, but
they made the journey much
smoother path.
Yes.
Yeah, we couldn't do it without them.
For sure.
In case you are new and you don't know that much about us, at Go Shout Love, we do amazing things for amazing families with kids on rare medical journeys. Each month, we shout love for families through the sale of creative apparel inspired by the kiddos. This month's design is inspired by Molly from Celina, Ohio. Molly is a fighter who constantly pushes herself and her family onward, regardless of the challenges they face. Visit our website, GoShout.love, to support Molly through the purchase of a t-shirt, tumbler, hat, or other items. Every item sold in May will be used to help install a wheelchair ramp in Molly's home and in the home of family members who help care for Molly. You can even start a subscription and shout love every month. If you do start one now, you will receive a free Go Shout Love campfire mug while supplies last. You don't need a coupon code. Just head over to the website, add your t-shirt subscription to the cart, and a free mug will be added in there as well.
You mentioned earlier your relationship with medical professionals, and specifically the Children's Hospital in Dayton.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit. We hear a lot of great stories, and we also hear some horror stories from families and how it relates to doctors. And so I'm curious if you can give us a rundown of that relationship, and then what do you think has made that so positive for you guys? What has made that relationship specifically with those doctors, nurses in the hospital such a great one? This, even though they don't have the soda that you want.
Yeah, I mean, if they had that, we'd really talk them up. But
that big strike against them.
No, I think we have been inpatient so many times that you see these faces time and time again, and then they're not just faces anymore. You then put names to them, and then they become friends, and then they become like family. When you have nurses coming in and saying, walking by your room, who aren't necessarily your nurse, and saying, hey, we saw you on the board and we didn't know Molly was inpatient, but I put in for you tomorrow night because we want to spend time with Molly. That's incredible, you know? And hey, we know you like this, so we will be in at this time because we know that's how you guys do things. Or hey, we really appreciate you guys. We do all the feeds and everything while we're inpatient. And that's not always the case with some families. And they're like, we're going to hop next door and check on so-and-so, holler if you need me. And we've kept in touch, not just in the hospital setting, but outside the hospital setting too. They follow us, on Facebook and whatnot. And they're always rooting for our girl. So they have become like family, that's for sure. And I know they don't always bring the best of news.
Sure.
Sometimes they got to come in and say, listen,
that's the reality of
I know
the job.
you just were hit with 3 diagnoses, but they're with us. They pick up right where we are and we move forward. So
probably the best example of like the nurses just being so great was Molly's big diagnosis when she was in, we were in through our anniversary. And I was kind of, Molly was asleep and I was just kind of lounging on a hospital couch. There's not really much to do. You were in the shower and they kind of knocked on the door and I was like, hey, and they're like, oh, where's Jess? And I go, in the shower. She go, well, we brought some stuff for your anniversary. We were going to sing happy anniversary, but the surprise is blown now. And I go, no, that's all right. Let's set it up.
Back.
And I said, when she comes out, then we'll all surprise
and
her.
Said,
it's all about her,
And you said, look at what I planned.
Yeah.
Look at this.
So I lined this up
look
for
what
you.
I did. Look what I pulled off.
I pulled together all these great nurses. They helped me pull off the surprise.
They brought in, I guess like a little plastic cheap tablecloth with candles,
light up candle, battery operated candles. They had balloons.
They probably wouldn't they don't want you lighting.
Lighting things. Yeah,
they made it
to go well with oxygen. Probably.
Yeah, my kid's on oxygen. No candles.
They
please.
made it as romantic and awesome as they could. Another example. For whatever, we don't have Chick-fil-A around here. Okay. We're too small of a town, but they do around Dayton. And somehow or another, we got on the subject. And the next day, one of the nurses came in and they're like, brought you some Chick-fil-A. I know you love it.
Oh, that's so cool.
Hey, pick this up for you. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. And I will say, I know how we got started on it. We were inpatient and it was like later in the week and
Tuesday.
Dayton has Chick-fil-A Tuesdays. On Tuesdays, they get Chick-fil-A catered to the cafeteria. Everybody knows Chick-fil-A Tuesday there. And I said, oh, man. He said, hey, Mom, are you going to go down and get some lunch? And I said, oh, yeah, I should probably eat. I'll go down. I said, too bad it's not Chick-fil-A Tuesday. And he goes, oh, yeah, tell me about it. And so then that next day, he made it Chick-fil-A Friday or whatever day it was.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Not only the nurses, but definitely our pediatrician, too.
Local here.
She looks at Molly as kind of her girl, her special girl. And when things were rough at times, she wasn't afraid to say, here's my cell phone number. Call me on Saturday. I don't care what time. Call me on Saturday and update me how she's doing. And
not even that. If you didn't call, she was calling. Hey, you were supposed to call me today. And it was like, oh,
on her off day.
Things are great. We forgot.
She
gets her in. I mean, she stays late for her.
Yeah, she knows that when Molly is sick and if she's starting to go downhill, she goes downhill pretty quick. And so
you got to get on it pretty quick.
Yeah. And so she'll make time in her schedule to fit her in.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Amazing.
So it sounds like at every level, you guys are getting exceptional care. And I'm curious, part of that I'm sure is just great staff, great pediatrician, great nurses, all that. But I wonder if do you feel that there's a role that you've played in helping build that relationship with them? You mentioned doing the feeds while you're there, whereas maybe some families don't. What are things that, if there's another set of parents that are in a similar journey, what advice would you give? And fully knowing that they can't control every part of that situation. If you've got a staff that's not so great, you can't fix that side. But owning your role in that relationship, what advice would you give in doing that and helping build great bridges that not only help provide great care for your child, but also make the stays there a little less difficult?
Yeah, I would say that I want to first start by saying that not everybody can do this because sometimes your job calls or sometimes you can't be at the hospital. But one thing that Kevin and I have been really fortunate enough to do is we've both been able to be at every hospital stay, every admission. We did not leave Molly's side. We were in the room constantly, slept on the cot. We, from day one, knew that this was our girl. We did all the feeds. Tube feeds. We did all the bottle cleaning. Nobody cleaned our supplies. We cleaned it all. We took care of her. We did every diaper change every single time, every bath. Now nurses would come in and help, but we got this. And they said, "Oh, are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is our girl. I mean, she's ours, and we take pride and ownership in her and all that she is." So definitely, being hands-on, that's definitely important. Being patience, polite and friendly and patient, and also understanding that nurses can only do what is ordered of them, and you don't always make the orders. So we learned that too, that it has to come from the doctor. So learning that whatever her chart says is what can be done. So that was a little bit of a learning curve, and knowing that as a parent going in is great, because simple things as a bandage change, a nurse can't do it unless it's ordered every so often or whatnot. You can't just request things to be done without orders. So that was definitely a thing. So
I think you just have to be also extremely patient with your nursing and it's not okay. We're upset as parents, like obviously when we're in the hospital, things are in the pits, right? And sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes you feel like you want to yell or be upset or be impatient with your staff, but it's not going to do anything, right? So even if you disagree with something, you definitely, your nursing staff, like Jess said, they are at the they got to do what the doctor says, and if you don't agree with it, then you need to talk to the doctor about it, and you can't take it out on your nursing staff.
Don't let the challenge of the current circumstance, the stress, get in the way of the humanity. Right, that they are too. They're humans doing their best,
and they may not have had a good day either. There's multiple babies on that floor or children that they are assigned to. So,
and for the vast majority of them, they go in it for all the right reasons. Yes, and they're doing their best. And there's always in every profession, they're going to make mistakes. And there's some that aren't as great. Right. Yep. But keeping that in mind is really important for sure.
I guess more advice for parents that are going through similar things that we went through: write stuff down. When the doctors come around to do rounds, because you think you're going to remember everything they said, and you're probably not going to. It
becomes a blur,
But I would also say, where I'm saying write stuff down. Also, don't get too obsessive when our original NICU stay, we were waiting on Molly to gain weight, and we weren't going to be dismissed until she did gain enough weight. And so we almost became obsessive with
we were calculating.
We were charting down
ounces and percentages and marking what scale she had, and we wanted the same scale every time, and we were obsessive over it, to the point where the attending came in and said, "I'm taking the scale out of here. You guys are it's gone.
Relax.
It's gone today."
Gonna,
so they wheeled her out of there, and lo and behold, what was it, like 4 days later? Yeah, we were going home.
Yeah. Well, and part of that, I'm sure, is just getting to the shift in perspective of you're looking, instead of like trying to win this battle of the weight, you're looking at the overall war, you're looking at the overall health and growth and just what's best for her. Yes. And that's part of life.
They've seen this thousands of times. I mean, this was our first journey, but they've seen this. They know how it works. You got to have a little faith in them. They know what they're doing.
Yeah. You guys are both educators. And so, Kevin, you said you teach 8th grade.
Yep.
8th grade English. Yep. And then, Jess, you're teaching kindergarten.
Yep. I do kindergarten intervention.
And so I'm curious, what has this journey with Molly, how has it shaped how you view education, and specifically, adaption and inclusion for all kids, and specifically,
it gets me so excited.
Specifically, I know your mind initially is going to go directly to the medical side of things, but I'm wondering if there's a broader shift in perspective in just the individual students that are in your care in the time that you have them.
So I don't think that I was ever really known as the most patient and understanding teacher. I think I'm a good teacher, but I don't think that patience and understanding and things like that were my my biggest strengths. But when you have a child who has some disabilities, it kind of opens up a whole new perspective to things. And I would say that it's helped me be just a little bit more patient with some kids that aren't always maybe they don't pay attention when they should be and stuff like that. Well, you know what? Maybe they
may have a backstory.
Yeah, they got something going on. So tread lightly, and I would say, patience and understanding with just trying to, understand things from every kid's perspective.
Yeah. So when you said Molly's taught you patience, it's not just in the home.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
even in your job, your day-to-day work.
She's taught me quite a few lessons.
Yeah.
Things don't always have to be perfect either.
Right.
The dishes that are in the sink, you know what? They'll be there tomorrow and they can be done.
And you're going to make more of them anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I don't know how many times
Yeah.
we clean bottles. It's to the point where it's like, let's buy more.
Yeah. At one point, before Molly, there would never be a dish
Ever
in the sink.
This house was immaculate. Now it's like,
But you know what?
it's life.
Now those dishes will wait. I'm gonna hold my girl for a
Absolutely.
little bit longer tonight.
Absolutely. Yeah. Jess, what about you?
Oh man, I teach kindergarten intervention, so I deal and work with kids who have special needs on the regular, or kids who are coming into the system that may require a little extra time and patience. And so,
have you been doing that your whole career?
I have. I've been in special ed my entire career, and I love my job dearly. And I think it's given me a little light going into this situation. When your own daughter gets diagnosed, it's like, oh my goodness, this is what these parents are seeing, and this is how they feel when they come in. When they walk into an IEP meeting and there's 7 people sitting around the table, they might not feel like speaking up or be a little intimidated or apprehensive. But I'm there now, and I was before. I don't want to say I wasn't, but I feel for them. I'm going to be on that side of the table.
Right.
Someday. My daughter is going to go to preschool in a couple of years, and that's going to be me.
Right.
And so I want them to know that anything is possible. If you want it, we can make it happen.
Yeah.
I'm a huge, I've always been a huge advocate for inclusion, but now more so than ever.
Sure.
So I want these kids to be able to access everything their peers are able to access.
Yeah.
Whether that be the gymnasium, the playground, educationally and non-educationally. I want them to be included. I want them to feel loved. I want their parents to not worry when they're at school.
Well, and for sure, I can imagine that when those parents come in and have those IEP meetings, those conversations, to know that you're walking a similar journey.
Yeah.
They know for sure, because the normal mindset would be, well, they don't really know what we're going through. They don't understand.
Yes.
And that's not the case here. And so not only do you get to help put them at ease and give them a different perspective and a certain level of peace of mind, but you're in a position where you also get to help shape your staff in your school district
and make changes for the better, not just for the kids now, but for the kids in the future
and to
too.
say, hey, this parent that keeps hounding on this issue, it's legitimate. Like, they're not trying to be.
It's a need, a true need.
They're just doing what their child deserves, and we need. It's one thing when there's somebody on the inside that can help bring people along too.
Yeah.
And what a cool way to be able to be positioned and to leverage that.
And I know so often they'll say, not they, but I think it's a mindset. Well, it's just one kid, but when that one kid becomes your kid, you got to make it happen.
Right.
I mean, if that's your kid, what would you want it to happen? How long would you fight for it? What length would you go to make it happen? And I'm willing to go all the lengths, all the distance, not only for Molly, but for every kid that I come in contact with.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. Inclusion, especially for kids with different abilities, is a really broad reaching topic. We find that a lot of families will reference negative or hurtful memories that have happened in their journey from strangers and just like day-to-day interactions, right? That these moments that they come in contact with. And sometimes comments are insensitive or malicious, but a lot of times they come out of just a place of ignorance.
Yes.
As parents, what do you find as okay or not okay to say or do when approaching a child that has different abilities?
So I will start and say that when we first started, down this journey with Molly, I was, I think, kind of sensitive towards things like that. But I guess I think through you, Jess, you helped out a lot. You learned that if a kid's staring, that's okay. Like, teach them. Like, it's all right.
Every time you come in contact with that, it's an educational opportunity.
Yeah. And
so it's your job as the parent to be her advocate and to teach.
Yeah. it's so, yeah, Molly, there's some things that are going to be different about her. She gets her food through a G tube. Let me tell you why. And like, it's okay. Like, kids get this, and this is how she gets her nutrition, and it's no big deal. Yeah.
So I would say, on the hurtful side of things, would definitely be using, how do I want to say this? I always was taught, person first language.
Right.
Molly comes first, then her disability.
Right.
It's not, Dandy Walker syndrome and then Molly. It's Molly who has Dandy Walker syndrome.
Right.
Or Molly who's been diagnosed with infantile spasms. She's not happy. So definitely using person first language whenever you're talking about a child who has special needs. That's huge. I'm a very big advocate for that. And then inclusion is a huge thing for me, and then just advocating for them, using any opportunity you can as a learning opportunity.
I would encourage parents to, talk with their kids about kids with, special needs and stuff, because it's...
And how to approach them. I mean, I love when we go someplace and they say, hey, Molly, and they look at her first instead of looking at me and saying, hey, how's Molly doing? And you might not get an answer from Molly, but you might in a way that you wouldn't expect.
Right.
Either eye contact or a grin, or say hi, Molly, and grab her hand and give her a little squeeze, because she can feel that. Yeah. So I love nothing more than when she's greeted, as opposed to greeting her through me.
Right.
Or Kevin.
Yeah.
So
spoken to instead of spoken about.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll make a plug here for anyone listening that we have a great episode. I think it's episode 49 with Tina B, who is on Instagram at Disability Inclusion Educator. I don't know if you follow her.
I do not.
But she has, and in our podcast episode with her, we talk through, she gives like 5 tips. That's kind of like the starting point of like how to start some of those conversations. Yeah. And it's more so on the side of the, not of the family side, but on, someone who comes in contact, helping a child be prepared, and adults for that matter, to be prepared to engage in those conversations with the people first language, and asking questions, and just easing into, but showing interest and engaging people instead of just, trying to stare or look away or avoid eye contact.
And so often you see that and I understand too, being on the other side of that, where you don't want your child to ask a question that's inappropriate or might be demeaning to the child, They're kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're going to be inquisitive. They've never
Yeah.
seen this before. Lots of them. I'm not saying all of them,
Right.
but several kids have never seen a feeding tube before, or a child who may be in a wheelchair, or a child that is on oxygen or CPAP, or, what have you. They're going to ask questions. And if you put up this void or this barrier of turning them away or giving them a look, or why is he staring at my child, then you're missing an opportunity to teach.
Yep.
So
yeah, absolutely. And I've found I've been challenged in all of these ways too. And I think it comes down to, as much as we're afraid of our own fears and our own like failures, that if my kid were to ask the wrong thing, it's really a poor reflection on me, and I don't want that.
You don't want
it's
that
like
to happen
it's
either.
really
Yeah.
hard to get to that point where you realize that you're like, oh gosh, that's super selfish, and it's out of insecurity, but you're trying to like lean into that and say, okay, let's face this and let's get real and help our kids learn and have ourselves learn in the process. So, well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to sit down and share your journey with us. Is there anything else that you want to add before we wrap up?
I just like to say that we could not do any of this with Molly, or, live this life without our family and our community. I mean, They are second to none. We love them and appreciate all that they do for us, and know that we see them, we hear them, and we truly appreciate the support.
Yeah, the Rockford and Celina community and all of Mercer County here. It's special places to live, special places to work.
You're not just a number here.
Right.
You're family.
Yeah, they're the support and the love that they have given us and Molly. Any just kind words or fundraisers that they've done have just been, it'll never be forgotten. Yeah. The care that they've shown us and given us.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
If people aren't following along your story, how can they connect with you online and stay up to date with Molly?
If they like to stay up to date on Molly, they can follow myself on Instagram, Jess K. Kramer. And then on Facebook, Jess Walls Kramer. And I post pretty regularly. It's actually might as well be called Molly instead of myself. I don't know why
Molly
I have my name
has
on
her
there.
own Facebook page.
Yes, so we do updates. I post during feeding tube awareness. Feel free to reach out and ask questions. No question is a silly question. So I'm happy to share our story and help in any way that I can.
Awesome. And we'll be sure to link to those profiles in the show notes. All
Sounds
right.
great.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening, everyone. Please share this episode and this podcast as a whole with someone you know. It is a great way to help us shout love for families like Molly's. Stay tuned. There are more great conversations headed your way. As I mentioned before, go to our website, goshout.love, and if you haven't already, start a subscription. If you do so now, you will receive a free Go Shout Love campfire mug while supplies last. Like I said, you don't need a coupon code. Just go to the website, add your subscription to the cart, and a free mug will just appear there for you. And with that mug and your new shirt, be strong, be bold, and go shout love.